Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's about 2:01 right now, and just thought we would get started. I want to welcome everybody to our third employer virtual town hall. I think we're getting better and better at these from a tech perspective as we kind of go through. So just if you guys want to just start off by welcoming everybody and thanking you for joining us this afternoon. If for those of you who haven't been a part of these calls before, we will reserve some time at the end for Q&A. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a place to post questions. We'll reserve some time at the end for answering questions. But I would ask that you hold if you have specific questions, go ahead and put them in there. But if you have just kind of general questions, if you could wait until we start kind of going through, that would be great. Today, we've done a few of these. We kind of did an overview in our first one. Our last one on Tuesday, we did one specific for self-employed individuals. Both of those have been uploaded to our YouTube page. We are going to be also having them on the labor.vermont.gov website as well. So you can look for that. Either by the end of the day today or first thing tomorrow, a page with all these past events. So I would encourage you to check out our past events that we have done. But today we are going to be talking with a few individuals from the Department of Labor, focusing on employer services and rapid response. So really kind of taking a step back and looking at the step-by-step process for those of you who maybe have businesses or work for businesses that haven't been through this before or just need a refresher. We thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about a few different areas, including obviously unemployment insurance, some of the legal aspects and kind of the notification process, as well as kind of the workforce development perspective of this as well. So if I could just want to introduce our speakers for today. We're going to have Dirk Anderson, who's our general counsel. He'll talk you through the WARN Act as well as notice of potential layoffs and just the requirements, both amidst COVID-19 and the regular. Cindy Robillard, who's our business services manager for workforce development. She'll be talking through just her role and kind of how she's assisting businesses now amidst COVID-19. And going forward as well as we kind of look for the light at the end of the tunnel. And then last but not least, and who will be going first in our this afternoon and kind of talking is Cameron Wood, who, if you've joined us before, he's our regular Director of Unemployment Insurance for the Department of Labor. So with that, I will kick it to Cameron and let him begin his talk. And again, just it'll be an overview of kind of unemployment insurance from the business perspective. So with that, Cameron, I will kick it to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. To get myself off of mute, I'll start this afternoon the same way I have with the past few webinars or town halls that we've done, and just say, we appreciate everyone who is joining, who is seeking information. We are doing the best that we can to provide information as quickly as possible. We know that there's a lot of concern out there from both the individuals, claimants who are seeking assistance, but also from employers who are seeking guidance from the department on how these different programs will intersect, trying to assist their employees receive any benefits that are being provided, and how they should be managing their employer accounts with the unemployment insurance program. So we appreciate the patience, and please know that we have information going up on our website daily, sometimes on an hourly basis, and please always check back to look for the most relevant information that's available. For today's town hall, we are going to be walking through some of the employer services that are being offered by the department, but also how employers should anticipate interacting with the unemployment insurance program during this pandemic. And so I'll start with the separation forms. So as a general matter in the unemployment insurance world, when an individual separates from employment, they would open their initial claim, and the department would generate a separation form that would go out to the separating employer, and in most instances, the non-separating employer as well, to get information about that claim. Now, this is the employer's opportunity to inform the department their side of the separation. It's a mechanism for us to prevent fraud and also to address any adverse separations that happen. So in this instance, we as a department, we are still printing and mailing separation forms to employers. And we understand that a lot of employers are currently out of business, temporarily shut down. You may be teleworking yourselves, not in the office on a daily basis, picking up your mail. And so we fully understand that aspect. And so a few things that we're doing, or a few pieces of information I want to provide to hopefully alleviate any concerns that you have about those separation forms. If it is not an adverse separation, meaning you have simply laid off your staff because your business is not essential and you have closed down, or because of some other impact related to the COVID-19 outbreak, there will be no penalty for failure to provide those forms back to us. Usually, if the employer doesn't get the form back to us in a timely manner, which is 10 days under Vermont law, we had the authority to issue a $100 penalty. And we want employers to know that in this instance, because of the outbreak and the impacts to employers, that we are holding you harmless in those instances. So if the separation is not adverse, if it is just a layoff, we are asking that you provide the information back to us so we have it for our department records. But we understand that that may not be timely, and we will be holding the employers harmless in those instances. But we ask that you do try to get the forms back to us as soon as possible. If there is an adverse separation, so during this outbreak, we know that there are still employers engaging in employment. Their employees may be teleworking, or they may be essential employees that you're requiring them to come to work. In this environment, there are still situations where an individual may be adversely separated. Either they are being discharged for what the employer may perceive as misconduct, or the individual is quitting their job. And we've mentioned in prior town hall meetings, and we're trying to get more information up on our website, but we know that there's a concern out there among the employer community about the incentives for people to quit their jobs because of the benefits that they are now eligible for, including the additional $600 that is coming from the federal government. If an individual quits because they feel that the benefits under unemployment insurance are superior to them working and earning a wage, we would consider that potentially an adverse separation. The individual would have to prove to the department that they have quit their job meeting one of the criteria outlined in state law, i.e., they have been diagnosed with COVID, they have a family member who has been diagnosed that they need to take care of, they don't have access to child care, or the employer has put them at an unreasonable risk of exposure. So the individual who quits has to demonstrate that to us. If the employer does not support the individual quitting in those instances, if they have information that the department needs then they need to provide that to us. And we're asking you as the employer to provide that to us as soon as possible, because that is the only way that we are going to be able to help in preventing any type of misuse or fraud in the unemployment insurance program at this time. So again, just to reiterate, if the separation is not adverse, please get us the information as soon as possible. If there is an adverse separation, again, please get us the information as quickly as you can, because that will help us adjudicate these issues, determine those people who should be eligible and provide them with benefits, and deny those individuals who do not meet the criteria that has been established under these circumstances. The last thing I'll mention about the separation forms, and then I'll move on to a few other topics, is the system is designed to provide a penalty if there is an untimely submittal of the form. So if we get a form back and it wasn't submitted timely and there is an adverse separation, the system may generate a $100 penalty in that instance. And please just know that if you get a bill from the department and it includes a $100 penalty for a late report, please know that we will work with you to address those penalties. We may not be able to address it immediately. It may be something that we have to get information from you, the employer, as to why it was late. I don't want employers to be frustrated with the department because we're putting out information that we're not going to penalize you, and then the penalties show up just on a bill. Just understand that our systems are programmed in such a way that sometimes those penalties are automatic, and we will be working with you to address those in the coming months as we move forward throughout this pandemic. So please just understand and know that we are going to be working with you. And if you see it on a bill from the department or a charge notice that it's there because of something we weren't able to have it removed before it went out. The second big thing
Hey, Cam.
Yeah, go ahead,
Cam.
Kyle.
If I could just jump in. I have a question regarding some of the forms. Somebody's asking the separation form or Anna's asking the separation form requires a back to work date. Some of my employees have filled it out, and some have just left it as 0000. We run 2 restaurants and do not know when our employees will be able to return to work. Should we hold on to the forms until a clear date is available when restrictions will be lifted? If you could just address kind of return to work date as a whole.
Yeah, Kyle, that was one of the topics I was going to bring up. I'll go ahead and mention it now because you've raised the question. We are not asking employers at this point in time to provide us with return to work dates. We have actually gone into the system and removed the return to work dates currently attached to any associated claim. And the reason we've done that is twofold. First, the commissioner, under his authority, has waived all work search requirements during this emergency period. The governor's office, as part of their executive orders, are requiring individuals to remain at home and not go out unless necessary. And so the last thing we want is to be requiring people to be out in public looking for work while we're trying to alleviate the stress of the pandemic. And so for now, during this emergency period, work search requirements have been waived for all claimants. And so we don't need the return to work date information at this time. The return to work date is for employers who are bringing their employees back within a specified period of time. And that way we don't have those individuals out looking for work and the employer thereby lose their skilled workforce. And so because no one is being required to look for work, because that has been waived, we don't need the return to work date information. And the second reason that we have removed the return to work date and we're asking employers not to submit them is because it can actually put an issue on someone's claim and prohibit them from getting paid in a timely manner. And it would require us as a department to go in and manually intervene to allow payment to go out the door. So we've removed the return to work dates. We understand that some return to work date forms were mailed out. That is something that we're trying to address from the systems perspective that we have. Those forms are generated automatically sometimes. So if a return to work date form is generated to a claimant, please inform them that we're aware of it. It may have gone out before we were able to turn off that form from automatically generating, and we're not asking for those to be returned, and we're not asking for employers to go in and enter that information because it may actually prohibit someone from being able to receive timely benefits. Now, real quick, whenever we begin to come out of this emergency period, whenever the work search is re-implemented, whenever the governor's office allows for businesses to begin operating again, that is the point in time that we may reach out to claimants, reach out to employers and say, you may not be able to open back up automatically. It may take you a little bit of time to ramp up your operations. And if that is the case, will you at that point in time give us a return to work date so we can put it back in the system? But for this point in time we're in right now, we're not asking for that from the employers or the claimants at this time. So one thing I want to go back real quick to the separation forms, because I do want to acknowledge that we are seeing numbers of UI claimants that we have never experienced before. I was speaking with the commissioner just a little bit ago, and we were actually discussing how we're seeing numbers that are rivaling the unemployment rate that the country had during the Great Depression. Not the Great Recession, the Great Depression, mind you. So this is the volume of individuals that we are experiencing right now. We had never anticipated. Our systems were not designed for it, and we are doing the best we can. So please know that we are experiencing technical issues at the same time that we're trying to process these claims. So some forms may not be mailing out as quickly as we want. We've also seen over the past few weeks some technical issues with some of the forms that we're sending out. They're misprinting. Sometimes the address isn't printing correctly, or sometimes the system is actually merging forms. So please understand that we may be mailing out multiple forms to you in order to ensure that we're providing you with the information. So if you get a form and then a few days later you get the same form and it's a copy, please understand that we may not be seeking the information twice. We're just trying to make sure that you are getting the information that you are entitled to as the employer. So please just, again, be patient and work through with us as we're trying to address the volume. I'll move on to the first quarter wage and contribution report. I imagine most employers are eager for information on that, as it is coming due at the end of April. Now, this is the first quarter report for wages between January 1 and March 31st. And that report is due by April 30th. And please know that at this time, we have not been given the order to waive that deadline filing period. So as we stand, April 9th, the afternoon of April 9th, that filing deadline is still the end of April. Please be checking our website on a routine basis for whether or not that filing deadline will be extended, but know that for now, we are still having that due on April 9th. Now, if an employer can file the report, that's the most important information that we need right now, because we need that information. And the reason it's difficult for us to push that extension, push that deadline out is because we need that information to help make people eligible, to help determine their eligibility for unemployment insurance benefits. As most employers probably know how the system works, you provide us the wage information on your employees, and we use that information to determine their monetary eligibility. And so that's why we need those reports even right now for the first quarter, is because we're receiving claims for benefits for people, and we need those wages to help determine their eligibility for unemployment insurance. So again, please understand that we know this is a difficult time. You may be shut down as a business. You may not have income coming in the door, so we understand that. We're working to try and address the contribution that will be due with the report, but please pay attention to our website, check routinely about whether that will be extended, but right now we have not made that decision yet. Please also know that we have teams of staff who will be reaching out to employers to try and obtain wage information. As I mentioned, we need that information to help make people eligible, to help determine their benefit amount. And so for some individuals, we have some of their wage history, but we may need wage information up to the effective date of their claim in order to help determine them to be monetarily eligible. And that obviously their claim would be within the first quarter, and you as an employer may not have submitted that report to the department yet. So we are reaching out to employers, we are calling them, trying to get wage information up to the effective date of someone's claim. If you're receiving a call from one of our staff members seeking that information, please try and get that back to us as quickly as possible, because again, we have individuals who have been laid off and who have no capacity for income at this time. They're looking at how to feed their families, how to pay their rent, etc. And we're trying to assist those people as quickly as we can and get them the benefits that they're entitled to, but we need your help as the employer to help make them eligible or help determine their monetary eligibility. It will also allow us to help determine which programs that they're actually eligible for. So if you're receiving a call from us, please know that we're reaching out because we need your assistance in helping other Vermonters with the support that they need. I will mention two other things, Kyle, and then I'll turn it back over to you. The first thing I'll mention is the mass separations form, mass separation spreadsheet. And I know that Cindy will speak a little bit to this on the workforce development side. Normally, the unemployment insurance division would seek mass separation spreadsheets from employers that are laying off 10 or more staff at any given time. The reason we would do that is it allows us to help facilitate the opening of claims for individuals so they don't have to call the UI Claim Center and potentially wait on hold while they're waiting for a customer service representative to assist them. At this time, because of the volume, the increase in volume that we've seen, we have had to suspend the intake of mass separation spreadsheets. And we've communicated that to a lot of employers. We tried in the very first few days of the mass closure that we were seeing and the mass layoffs, and we did not have the staff capacity to keep up with the level of employers who were seeking to provide mass layoff spreadsheets. And we were running into a lot of problems with not having the information needed in order to open those claims for people. If the employer had already laid someone off, then we weren't able to go back to the claimant to get the information. And so it was causing a bottleneck of information not getting to us in a timely manner. So we decided to suspend the mass layoff spreadsheet at that time. Now, we are approaching that on a case-by-case basis for the unemployment insurance division. So if you as an employer are having a mass layoff, you haven't had to close yet, but you will be closing in the near future, please reach out to Cindy Robillard with our Workforce Development Division. She is helping the UI division assist in who we need to fill out mass separation spreadsheets for the unemployment insurance division. Now, Workforce Development is seeking information from you as well to assist you, and I'll let Cindy speak to that. But for now, for unemployment insurance, we're only intaking mass separation spreadsheets on a case-by-case basis. The last thing I'll mention is, as we are coming up on our quarterly filing due date, and also for any information that we can help assist employers with in this time, we do have our employer services line, which I know Kyle has and will be sharing on screen. But please know that all of our staff have been sent to work from home. We're not in the central office of the Department of Labor as we normally would. And so we are working through the technological aspects of how to allow those individuals to work from home and to be connected to the central phone services that we have here at the central office. So it's a little bit of a delay in our ability to hook them directly into our phone lines. So right now, you may not get a live customer service representative on the phone when you call the employer services line. We're working to resolve that issue, but please know that you can leave a message, and we do have staff members on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, checking those messages, pulling your phone number off, and giving you a call back. So you may not speak to someone immediately. Please do reach out to us because we are here to assist you, and we will have somebody call you back as soon as feasible on our end. Kyle, I'll turn it back over to you and be here for questions.
Great, thank you, Cam. And I do have some questions for you, but I'd like to turn it to Dirk as we kind of move through. So we'll hold some questions for you at the end. Dirk, before we get into notification, I do have a question that I think would probably be best for you, just regarding PTO time. And Cam, if you have anything to add, please feel free to do so. A lot of questions around whether or not people should use PTO time ahead of time. But Liz asks, can an employee apply for unemployment to take care of a child whose daycare is shut down if they have unused PTO, or do they need to use FMLA? So Dirk, I think that would probably be best for you. So I'll before you kind of go into some of the stuff for notifying the department, if you could kind of go into the response about PTO kind of as a whole.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. So as I understand the question, employer still has work for the employee needs to take time off to care for a child. There's a couple of pieces to this, and I'll try not to get too long-winded here, but under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which Congress passed last 2 weeks ago, there are provisions for emergency paid sick time and emergency family and medical leave. And those are intended to dovetail so that under the Act, employees who need to take time off to care for a child because that child's place of school or daycare is closed due to the pandemic, the Act requires that an employer provide 80 hours of paid sick time to that employee that must be paid in addition or in front of, it takes precedence over any accrued sick time that individual may already have. And then the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act provides for an additional 10 weeks of family and medical leave to be reimbursed at a rate of 2/3 of the employee's salary up to a certain cap. Now that applies to employers with 500 or fewer employees, but there is a hardship exemption for employers with 50 or fewer employees, and that hardship exemption is, I don't have it right in front of me, but essentially it says that if you don't have the cash flow to pay that leave, or if that person is essential to the ongoing operation of your business, you do not have to comply with either of those two federal emergency laws. And I'll work with Kyle there's a lot of federal guidance on this subject. I'll work with Kyle to get that up on the website. I don't think it's there yet. It's going to be a link to a USDOL guidance FAQ. So we will get that up. Assuming that does not apply to you as an employer, if an employee has accrued leave, and I think I've strayed too far from the original question. Kyle, can you read it back to me?
Yeah, I mean, I think just some clarification too on kind of as a whole for PTO. If an individual employee has PTO time reserved and they are forced and the employer lays them off, because that's kind of more of a general question. So if an employee is laid off and do they have to use PTO time first, or can they file for unemployment?
Okay, so we switched from employee says I need to use sick time to a layoff of an employee who has accrued leave time. That is going to depend on the employer's accrued leave policy, if they have one. If accrued leave is available, I would encourage the employer to let the employee use it before filing for unemployment benefits. They do not have to. Again, if this is a layoff, the provisions of the emergency paid leave, sick time, and FMLA go out the window, and now we're talking about a layoff. It's really up to the employer at the discretion, consistent with the employer's written paid leave policy if they have one. But if you can do it, and if the employee wants it, I would encourage people to let them use accrued leave prior to filing for unemployment, because that is like a known benefit that they will get in their paycheck that week, as opposed to the uncertainty of filing an unemployment claim, especially right now. The other thing I'll say about that is that if an employee does establish an unemployment claim, and sometime during their period of filing, if the employer decides to pay out some leave to them, we, the department, will treat that leave as disqualifying remuneration, which means that it will be offset dollar for dollar against their unemployment benefit. So it's just important that if you do pay something out to an employee in a week in which they're filing a weekly unemployment claim, that employee tells us what they got so that we can do the appropriate calculation and not create an overpayment issue down the road. The other thing I just want to come back to, since I should have added it when I talked about those two emergency paid leave and family leave acts, to the extent employers are required to pay that leave is the federal government is giving an employers a tax credit for that leave. And I'm not going to get into all the details of that, but you will be basically, you, the employer, will be able to essentially dollar for dollar offset the cost of providing that leave against your payroll taxes. And that's, I'll leave that at that for the purposes of this presentation.
Yeah, that's great, Dirk. I appreciate it. If you could for me, just as we kind of go into kind of transition through the process. So an employer has made the determination that they're going to need to lay off employees. If you could kind of just talk about the WARN Act and notice of potential layoffs, just as it applies to Vermont businesses, just both pre-COVID and then during COVID, just as that situation has kind of developed over the last few weeks. Sure.
So we've gotten a lot of questions about WARN Act notification. The WARN Act is a federal act. It's called the Workers Adjustment and Retraining Notice Act, I think, or notification, WARN for short. In regular times, that requires an employer laying off 500 or more people, or closing a facility or with 50 or more employees, to provide notice to us, the Department of Labor, and the municipality that the business is located in 60 days prior to the layoff. Under Vermont's, what we call our mini WARN Act, this is Vermont law that was passed in 2013. It's called the Notice of Potential Layoffs Act. It does not have a catchy acronym like the WARN Act. But what that requires of Vermont employers is that they notify us of any layoff of 50 or more employees, or the closing of a facility of any size. Both acts do contain exemptions for circumstances beyond the employer's control. That's what we are treating this as. Commissioner Harrington has made the decision that we're not going to do any enforcement or penalties under Vermont's Notice of Potential Layoffs Act, because under these circumstances, it was unforeseen, and we're not going to pursue that. However, that doesn't mean that we still don't want to know about your layoff. Even though we're not going to whack you if you don't give us 45 days notice. But it's important for you to notify us, because that allows Cindy, and I'm going to transition to Cindy, and her team to provide you and your laid off employees with services from the Workforce Development Division. So I'm going to leave it at that and kick it over to Cindy, and I guess I'll stick around to answer questions at the end.
Yeah, I think that's great, Derek, and I appreciate it. So with that, I think I'll kick it off to Cindy Robillard. Cindy is our business services manager, newly within the last month or so with the department. So I just want to, Cindy, if you could introduce yourself and just kind of give an overview of your position, and then kind of go into the role of kind of workforce development amidst COVID-19. Nope, take yourself off mute, Cindy.
Perfect. Everybody hear me okay?
There you go.
All right.
There you go. You're good to go.
Okay. Thank you. As I just want to echo what both Cameron and Dirk said about really appreciating the businesses that are listening today. It's a great way for us to deliver good information in a really efficient way, and so your time is really appreciated. So as Kyle mentioned, the business services manager position, which I am in, is a fairly new position with the Department of Labor, and I thought it would be good for me today to just talk about what my hope is to be able to deliver for services in that role, and what's going on currently, and then what I will see and be able to share some information going forward about how workforce development and business services can support your business in the future. So basically what I would say about my role is that it's up to me and the team that will be assembled working closely with me to support coordinate the support and services that businesses need throughout the state. So this is going to include services that are part of the Department of Labor. And some of those are obviously things like unemployment insurance. We'll be coordinating with the Wage and Hour Division, other different units within the Department of Labor. It's also probably really important for me to mention that we have 12 regional offices throughout the state, career resource centers, and we're working with those regionally to be able to deliver services to your business. And then also key state agencies and other community partners. So I see the role of myself and business services as providing coordination for businesses around that. In recent weeks, as a result of the COVID-19 crisis, the function that I have been serving, and business services really is serving, is to be fielding calls and emails from businesses. And I've been hearing from businesses all around the state, small businesses, large businesses. And so what I'm trying to provide in those exchanges is information that helps them for what it is their need is in that moment. These services in the past few weeks have ranged from, offering information about unemployment. In some cases, it's just being able to provide a guide that the business owners, can then in turn provide to your employees about the steps to take. I know that, we know that businesses really want to support their workers. They want this difficult time to be as manageable as possible. So getting good information to your employees and coming from being able to provide that has been a priority. I've also been sharing links to the vast amount of array of resources through our partner agency, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, and many others. Also, there have been situations, and I assume and I know that this will actually be something that will be happening more going forward, but we are working with essential businesses and businesses that, things haven't really slowed down. If anything, things are busier than ever. And so those businesses have been in touch with me, and we've been working to put together some hiring and recruitment plans, creating job orders, sharing those job orders through our Vermont job link system. And we're working to have a good system in place so that when that really does pick up, we'll be ready to go. I guess at this point, I would just like to echo what Cameron and Dirk talked about as far as the mass layoff spreadsheet and providing notice. Dirk did a great job of being really clear about the requirements around providing notice, but we do want to encourage you to reach out to me and and let us know what's going on with your business. So on a case-by-case basis, depending on the size of your layoff and other factors, I will be communicating with the folks that I need to within the unemployment division to determine whether the mass layoff spreadsheet will actually be the trigger for the filing of your employees' unemployment claims. But more importantly, from a workforce development lens, what we're looking for is to make sure that we know about your layoffs, we're tracking them, and that will help us as we move forward kind of on the upswing side of what we're dealing with right now. Let's see. We know certainly that one of the challenges that many of you are facing is that there's lots of systems and supports that you're, being faced with navigating. And so you're going to see my email and a phone number at the end of this presentation. I really see that my way to support you would be to assess your situation and make sure that you're getting the connections that you need. Certainly, I will not always know the answer to your question, but I am able to make connections efficiently and get you the answers that you need so that you can relay them to your employees if that's what's needed, or work on next steps with your business operation. So that's kind of where we've been as far as what's happening right now and what we've been responding to. I did just want to talk briefly today about our rapid response services available through the Workforce Development Division. And for those that don't know or haven't ever been engaged with us around rapid response, it's a program that assists businesses during periods of both expansion and contraction. So, when you need help with, growing your workforce, rapid response can be of support. And also at times when things are, you're forced to make reductions. So under rapid response, what we really look to do is to find ways to reduce the impact of the economic challenges that you're facing by coordinating with key state agencies. That for us would include the Department of Economic Development, our regional development corporations around the state, other community partners, educational providers, And in doing that, we'll be able to support you in accessing resources around recruitment, retraining, and other things that we expect and anticipate that you may need. As we move forward, what we would be hoping to do and planning to do is, conduct assessments and coordinate with these partners that I've mentioned, both for individual businesses, but also for groups of businesses and then industry sectors. So if there are common resources or common strategies that we can deploy to support you in the phases that come ahead of us, that's what we would be looking for with rapid response. Within workforce development, I did just want to mention some other things that we would be tapping into would be things like federal retraining programs, our apprenticeship program, the work opportunity tax credit program. And it's also, I think, important to note, I talked briefly at the beginning about having our 12 career resource centers are available, and I just wanted to remind everyone that those centers are providing virtual services and certainly can be a local resource to you, especially around recruitment right now. So I think I've covered what I was hoping to cover, and just want to reinforce that we certainly are going to be facing territory we've not experienced in the next few weeks as we bring businesses back online. And my contact, again, will be provided at the end of this presentation. So I would encourage you all to feel free to reach out to me, and we can talk about ways that the business services unit and the business services manager, myself, would be able to support you going forward. So I think that's what I was hoping to cover. If that's good with you, Kyle,
Yeah, that's great, Cindy. That's perfect. So I think I'll throw up the contact information right now. And I guess if you guys can just mute your lines, and then I'll kind of go through some of the questions that we've seen. So I won't jump back to the video. I'm just going to leave the contact information up. So for unemployment insurance, the employer services phone line is there, as Cameron was mentioning. And then I've put Cindy's email here. So you can feel free to reach out to her that way in terms of workforce development and business services and rapid response questions. So I just want to kind of go through some questions quickly, just in terms of a lot of the questions that we've seen are around experience rating. Just want to get to those. So Joanne asked, can you please clarify if an employer's experience rating takes a hit with these new unemployment claims? We've heard conflicting information. So I guess that would be Cam. So Cam, if you want to just jump in, I won't put your video up. I'm just going to leave the contact information. So feel free to jump in and unmute your mic.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. I'll try to be brief so we can get to some additional questions. The employer experience rating, we have received a lot of concerns about that from employers. Please know that we have in the state law changes that were passed, I want to say about 2 weeks ago now, and signed by the governor. There is a provision that allows the department to relieve employers of benefit charges if the individual has, if there's a temporary layoff, or if the individual quits due to one of the COVID reasons outlined in that bill. The bill is H742. And it allows us to relieve up to 8 weeks of benefits charged per individual if the employer meets a few criteria. Specifically, they have to rehire or offer to rehire the individual upon reasonable time after the resumption of operations. So we'll have more information available when we kind of crest out of the emergency, when employers are able to actually open back up, about what it means to rehire or offer to rehire. But as long as the employer does that, they could be relieved of up to 8 weeks, and the commissioner has the authority to extend that in given circumstances. So we do have relief for taxable employers under the Federal CARES Act. There is up to 50% relief for reimbursable employers, those that pay the department back dollar for dollar, up to half of those benefit charges can be relieved under the Federal CARES Act. So we'll have more information for both of those moving forward.
Great. Question from Michelle. When I call an employee back from being laid off, if the employee chooses to not come back, they are making more money on unemployment, for instance. Does his or her unemployment compensation end? And I know there's a lot of detail into that, but I guess that probably first to Cam, and then if Dirk, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so this is one that we know there's a lot of concern out there as well. With the additional $600, individuals may be receiving more on unemployment benefits than they may have under their normal job. And we can address that in a few different ways. The main is going to be if an employer is authorized to open back up and they are reaching out to their former employees and offering the job back that the individual had prior to the layoff, same job, same rate of pay, we would likely consider that to be an offer of suitable work. And if a claimant refuses an offer of suitable work, we have the authority to deny that individual for that week and for benefits moving forward. So it will be a fact-specific scenario. It will depend on what specific job the individual is being offered. If it's the same job at same rate of pay, that is likely how we will treat those circumstances to incentivize those individuals back into the workforce.
Awesome. Kate asks, could you clarify how partial UI claims work for employees, or could you clarify how partial UI claims work for employees that have reduced hours? What does the calculation look like when earnings are maintained? I think if you could just clarify, I think there's there's some eligibility stuff there, but partial unemployment versus total unemployment, and then the other thing too, I've seen some questions on the $600 benefit. I believe my understanding is that somebody on partial unemployment will still receive the $600 benefit. So, Cam, back to you.
Yeah, correct. So the way the federal pandemic unemployment compensation works, that's the additional $600. As long as the individual is eligible for a weekly benefit amount, they will receive the additional $600. So whether the person is wholly laid off, isn't working, they will receive it. Additionally, people who are on partial layoff will receive the $600 as well. Now, how we calculate that out is in determining someone's monetary eligibility for their weekly benefit amount, we will take the wages earned in the individual's 2 highest quarters of their base period. So we look at a 4-quarter period, and the 2 highest quarters within that, we add the wages together and we divide by 45. And that's how we get your weekly benefit amount. And so for individuals who are on partial layoff, they would be eligible for partial unemployment, and we would calculate the benefit amount the exact same way. However, those individuals are required to report to us the hours and wages, the hours worked and the wages earned each week. And so if someone is used to working 40 hours, you've reduced them down to 20 hours, they are eligible to file. That's how we would determine their benefit amount. And then each week they would report to us they worked 20 hours, and here are the gross wages that they earned. And then how we calculate it is of the gross wages that are earned for any given week, we take half of those gross wages and we disregard them. And then the other half, we deduct dollar for dollar from the individual's weekly benefit amount. That is how partial unemployment works.
Great. So some questions on the $600. How does that impact businesses at all, if at all? from their perspective? Is that something that's from the employee side? Is that taxable? So the question coming in about how that's being deducted at all from their check amounts. I guess, Cam, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, so two things to note here. The $600 does not go against an employer's experience rating, and it is not attributed to a reimbursable employer. That is, the $600 is paid by federal funds, and it will not have a negative impact to any employers in the state. The $600 is considered taxable income, as are all unemployment insurance benefits. They are taxable. And at the time of filing, when an individual opens up their unemployment insurance claim, we ask the individual if they want their benefits to be taxed. We notify them that they are taxable, and we ask if they want taxes withheld. And what we've done is, in the instances where individuals have requested us to withhold taxes, we have extended that to the $600 as well. So we don't have the capacity to tax the underlying benefit, but not the $600. It's all or nothing. And when an individual requests that they be taken out, it is done automatically. And I'll just go ahead and put the plug in as well real quick. We're trying to get messages out as in all circumstances. Individuals do not need to do anything to apply for or receive the additional $600. When they are determined eligible and they get their weekly benefit amount, when we pay out the weekly benefit amount, we are adding the $600 on, and the individual does not need to do anything in addition to receive that amount.
That's great. Time for just a couple more questions as we go through. Some notes on essential businesses. So as an essential employer, can we lay off employees because they are afraid to come to work? Our workload has not reduced because of this mandate. I still have work for my employee. So in addition, looks like another essential employer question from Stephanie. If an employee is choosing to leave work because their spouse is considered to be high risk, would they be eligible for unemployment? So just some questions around essential businesses. I don't know if those might be best in terms of unemployment insurance and unemployment benefits. Is that something that is best suited, to come in, from our office? I guess just kind of going from that perspective.
Yeah, Kyle, this is Cameron. We do not make a determination of whether a business is essential or not. That is something that would need to go to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. But I can say that if an essential business is looking at whether or not to allow people to come to work, meaning they have work, but it's a question of whether to allow them to come, it's really up to the employer. We don't provide that type of guidance. What we can say is if the individual files for unemployment insurance benefits, we will look to determine who caused the separation. So if the employer is telling people to go home, then we would consider that to likely be a layoff and the separation on behalf of the employer. If the employer is saying, I have work and we're asking people to come in, and the individual says, I'm concerned about going in, and refuses to show up, and then decides to file for unemployment that week, we would determine that separation to be on the claimant's initiation. And at that point, the claimant would need to prove that they separated from employment for good cause, and it would have to meet one of the criteria outlined in the changes in the state law or under the Federal CARES Act. And in that case, one of the reasons for separation outlined in H742 was that the individual needed to care or assist a family member if the family member belonged to a specific class or group of persons that has been identified as being at high risk. So in that instance, the individual who is staying home to take care of a husband or spouse who is at high risk, we would likely allow that person to be eligible for benefits in that case.
Great. Well, thank you, Cam, for that. And thank you to each of our speakers today, Dirk, Cam, and Cindy. So thank you to each of you for taking the time this afternoon. I know it was a lot of information. I just want to reiterate, this is all information that we will be following up with, as Dirk mentioned earlier. A lot of questions around the paid time off and just kind of some of the federal guidance. We'll be having some more information on our website, and as Cam said, we're continually updating that, sometimes on an hourly, daily, weekly basis. So this broadcast has been recorded and will be put up on our YouTube page as well as on our website, as I said at the top. If you do have questions, please put them in the right-hand side, the Q&A. We do try to address questions after the fact as much as we can. But I would encourage anybody who has questions about eligibility for their employees, how to file, how to go through this process, to check out our website and reach out to the contacts that you see on your screen. Just if you're looking for help, we will do everything we can to get back to you as quickly as possible. So thank you again. With that, I want just to thank you to our speakers once again, and thank you to all of you for taking the time and appreciate your ability to tune in. So with that, thank you and have a great rest of your day.